welcome back to the show. My guest today is Deanna Charett. Deanna spent 20 years, wait, I got to say this right, 10 years in the Air Force, 10 years in the Army Reserve, which you'll explain to me later, and is the founder of Bad Habits Production Company and also the Bad Habits Organization, which gets veterans into film and that type of thing. And again, you'll explain more. So Deanna, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, let's start from the beginning quickly. A little bit about where you're from, and talk about getting into the Air Force, because you had a few other options.
Right. So don't shoot me. I'm from Mobile, Alabama.
Oh.
My family originally on my mother's side did come from Louisiana, so now I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but that's not why we came back. But we also didn't get kicked out of Mobile, so that's the good thing. My mom joined the Navy. She had wanted to join since she was 4 years old. And while she was up at Great Lakes going through hospital corpsman school as a wave, that's just how old she is, she met my father, who was from Buffalo, New York. And so they hit it off. And 7 years later, I was born. And so, it's interesting because my mom got out of the Navy and then ended up joining the Army as an active reservist. Her went to 18 months in at the Pentagon, and off and on had different jobs. And when I was in 10th grade, she was an Army recruiter. But before that, I remember her coming back from the Pentagon, and I was like 4 or 5, and she had gotten me one of those green fatigue uniforms, had 5 stars on it, had my name, hat, combat boots. Why this is one of my first memories of my mom, I'll never know. And she was teaching me how to salute properly. 4 years. So she started my recruiting early, or my indoctrination.
I was going to say, you were set in stone. That was set early.
Right. I'm surprised. She probably taught me how to step off with the left foot first, too. So then in 10th grade, she became an Army recruiter, which stopped all my friends from coming to the house. And she would show up at my high school, and I was like, no. But I did 4 years in the ROTC, and I was like, I can join the military, and I was going to join the Navy. And they had said, you know how they are, the recruiters. Yeah, sure. And I was supposed to be one of the first armament females on a battleship or whatever. And I was like, yay, bombs. And then I started thinking about it, and like the day before I was supposed to go sign the paperwork, I called the recruiter and I said, do I have to wear bell bottoms? And he said, of course, that's tradition. I went, sorry, can't do that. And it was just, I think that was like right before my 17th birthday, because my mom, I remember her quite vividly taking me going, happy 17th, let's go to the recruiting office or something. So when I didn't join the Navy, I was, they used to have them all set up together.
Mm-hmm.
She just quietly pushed me past the Marines and went, no, baby, you've had a high school education kind of deal. So, and you're not joining the Army. So I went into the Air Force with my ROTC, 4 years of ROTC. I was one of the last ones to go through you can pick the AFSC you want, and you can fast track out of basic training, which was only 6 weeks at the time. And my second day there, I was crying, Mommy, come get me. I can't do this. Because I was I'm an only child, so, so it was, I fast tracked through it because I don't know if I would have made the 6 weeks. I don't know. Definitely Air Force was it.
So real quick, sorry to interrupt. Let's talk about your dad was also career.
Yes.
Was also career military, and then talk about that. Your basic. Where was that? Any experiences kind of stick out to you?
Yeah,
Lackland
okay. Air Force Base. The only thing that stuck out to me was when I fast tracked. I was doing stuff I was going through all my training at night and during the day, so I wasn't with my flight. So everyone's like, there's no proof. You had those graduation photos and you had the little yearbook or whatever. I was in none of that.
Mm.
So
right.
Really, did you? So which added to my career as it changed. I ended up, my AFSC was interior electrician. I wanted to do EOD, but somebody talked me out of it. I was like, oh yeah, if I mess up, I'll go out with a bang, right? And I had the opportunity to be an in-flight refueler on a KC-135, and I turned it down because I had done in high school, we had done all the flying stuff and getting to see this, as part of the ROTC program. And I felt like laying on an ironing board over a glass bubble was not, and it was cold. And
at 30,000 feet or whatever it is, that wasn't what you wanted to do?
No, I was like, which was stupid of me because I wasn't thinking of the money. At the time, I was thinking more like, what could I do when I got out, which interior electrician would have worked. Mm-hmm. And I went to Shepherd Air Force Base for that. Okay. Did 6 weeks at that, and then was stationed at RAF Chicksands in England, which is what I really wanted. I had my high school senior year, I had read Macbeth, and I was like, this is what I want. So I ended up at RAF Chicksands, which is no longer there, and it was a spy base, basically. Mm-hmm. We did Morse code there, and because I was on a team called the MIR team, which is one of 4 teams that had the TSSCI clearance that would go into all the embassies, build them, or go to secure places and work on that. I was the only female on that team. They were already thought of in the dorms to be spies because they would disappear for 4 months at a time or 3 months at a time and come back. So when I went there, they were like, wait, you're on the what team? Yeah, I'm with no, they're all men. I'm like, I'm the first, whatever. And they were like, yeah, you're probably an OSI agent. I was like, a what? The wives didn't like me.
Added to your mystique.
Right?
Made you a super secret spy.
I was like, this is crazy. So yeah, the wives were like, no, she's not going with my husband for 3 months to this one or to that one. So I had a hard time being able to go out and deploy or to TDY. Mm-hmm. Well, electrical wires over in England, they don't run the conduit. The British didn't run the conduit back. And that didn't agree with me. I blew my linemans up on a hot neutral that I tied off together. Usually we used our fingers because it was dead, right? And no, not that day. So the hole in the linemans and my perm, because I kept it just under regs, my perm going up like that, I was like, I'm done. I am so done. Mm-hmm. So with the clearance, the TSSCI clearance, I became a graphic illustrator.
Okay, so real quick, let me stop you right there because you and I spoke a little bit about, both of us have spent some time in England. So first of all, give me a time frame of this. Are this pre-wall, and then
it was
tell me about England.
Yeah. So go ahead. I got there in 1989.
Okay. Really? Right at the end there of the wall.
Right at the end. I got there in January of. No. Yeah, probably. I don't know. That's so long. And so I was actually there pre-wall before it fell. I watched it fall, then I went on TDY to Wiesbaden, Germany.
Oh, okay.
So that was the only TDY I got to do, and it was 2.5, 3 months, and that's a whole. With this team, they gave us BMWs. They rented us BMWs, put us up in hotels downtown, and of course, when we get there, they're like, "Yeah, welcome to Wiesbaden, the terrorist capital of the world, where they live." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" They're like, "Yeah, this is why this is the safest place. No terrorist is going to bomb their own." I was like, "Okay, this is great." But I was at Chicksands. It was, it was a little different. It's no longer there. But I loved the place. It was the only Air Force base that had no aircraft, and it was the only RAF base that only had one RAF, and that was the commander, who was just there to oversee everything. Mm-hmm. So I cross-trained to graphic illustrator, and the way they explained it to me was, yeah, you're going to do artwork. I was like, wait, stop. Y'all are going to pay me to color in the lines? This is great. So because of the clearance, I ended up getting to do, back then, we did not have computers. We were still doing everything by hand, view graphs, things like that. And because it was such a small base, we didn't have any of that. I mean, I had to learn OJT right there. And so I remember one of the biggest thing learning on that was, this shows how young I was. I was reading in my book, and I turned to my supervisor and I said, "It says a Xerox. What's that? I haven't." And he's like, "You don't know what a Xerox is?" And I'm like, "Do we have one?" And he points back at the printer and he goes, "What's that say?" And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Okay, just for the next year, 6 months, 8 months, just go sit over there and play Tetris. We're good." I was like, "Okay." So, I came back. I loved it, though. I mean, I loved England, changing of the guards, all that kind of stuff. That was, I loved that. The things that I did, like messing with the Queen's guards and everything, would not be allowed now today. Things that we would mock them, which was wrong on my part. But I didn't quite understand. I was young and dumb. So from there, in 91, I ended up back. I PCS to Eglin Air Force Base in Niceville, Florida, right outside Fort Walton. And I was stationed with the 33rd Fighter Wing. So right when all of this started happening is when we started gearing up for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And I ended up with the 33rd Fighter Wing, and they deployed. And I was asked to deploy with them, but because of the rules, I was under 90 days or something that I had just PCS'd in. And so I wasn't allowed to deploy. But because of my clearance, I kept getting asked, "Oh, we need her with her clearance to go brief with some of the high ranks," or all of that. And I was like, me.
Yeah.
They were like, "You don't even know how to make a view graph." I was like, "Oh, that's okay." And so I didn't get to go with the 33rd Fighter Wing. But I learned a lot. I got to meet Major Rhonda Cornum when she came back. She was a POW for the Army. She was the one that they showed with the arms broken or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I met her when she repatriated because her husband was my flight surgeon. And so I've reconnected with her lately, and that in itself is, I mean, she is one of the most amazing women. Has done this. The Air Force or the Army had her do this mental, physical fitness for the military, for some of the college, on working on your mental, physical fitness, especially in stressful situations and things like that. And she's an amazing, I think maybe 5-foot woman. That, as a senior airman, I was like, "Oh, I'm meeting a POW." Now I'm seeing it more like this was one of the few women that I looked up to, or looked up but down at.
I get you.
But so she was one of those, and I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize the impact she made on me until just lately." But then I was at 33rd for 2.5 years, and then ended up in Korea at Osan Air Base.
Okay, so how long so tell me, take me to Korea. You and I discussed it a little bit. You had learned to water ski in Florida. You thought maybe that translated into snow in Korea. Talk about your impressions of Korea and what you were doing there and how long.
I was there from 93 to 94, June of 93 to June of 94. So I was there during the grandfather's reign. And so I worked the Intel Squadron. I think it was 7th Intel. All I remember is it was a Tiger, and so we were initiated by screaming. They would scream something like, "Boo, what are you going to do?" And so you'd scream back at the commander. I don't even remember the whole. It was one, "Sir, the Tiger never sleeps."
Okay.
And if you didn't do it loud enough, then you got hit with all the water guns. Well, I had been in martial arts already. I had started martial arts in 91. And so I had, I learned how to scream out with the key and all of that. So I had this deep, deep key, and it was like, and I just let out, "Sir, the Tiger never sleeps." And everybody was like, "Whoa, that is just," and so my commander, Colonel Yagi, was just like, That's one of the few commanders over me. He was like, you know what? We're good.
We're good.
And so I worked on the intel up on the hill, and which was really great. Except it was almost a 45-degree angle, and so I learned a lot. I worked with the Korean Air Force, and between all of that, I got to learn a lot more than I should have. Maybe when they would say shred all this stuff, I was like, let me look at it first. I also found out VCR tapes don't shred. So yes,
for those,
I did get drunk. Yeah.
I was going to say, so for those that don't know kind of you mentioned the grandfather, obviously, but for those that don't know, what was the atmosphere politically and socially and all that at that time?
It was pretty bad. It was getting worse because, I mean, we know how mentally unstable they are, maybe. He was really getting bad. It was starting to get really worse. And right before I left, they were talking about keeping us there, and then they were talking about, well, instead of doing a 12-month tour, you're going to do a 13, so you overlap with your replacement. And I was like, yeah, nah, this ain't happening. But I had read a book called This Kind of War, which was about the Korean War. And I read it like 3 months before I left, and I was like, yeah, this ain't happening. We're not staying. This is about our POWs and about what they did. And I was like, yeah, I will never, no. Not that I knew half the stuff that was going on, but I wasn't also one of these people that just did their job. I went and I would talk to the people in the squadron. We would hang out together. I would learn what they were doing. To me, it was interesting. Oh, wow. Did y'all do that? How did you get that picture kind of deal? And because also, as a graphic illustrator, my job was to map the North Korean army. And because we had these new SunSpark computers, those, I don't even know if we would have just the outline of North and South Korea. So I had to go in, and I'd memorized where the army bases were for the North Koreans. So I would get called in quite often on Saturday morning, still drunk, and be mapping these and be looking at my lieutenants or my tech sergeants being like, how did you get up? Because I know we were out partying about 3 hours ago. And they were like, eh. So, it was that whole thing. And yes, the snow skiing. And I learned after 2 bottles of vodka going up the hill, or not up the hill, up on the bus to the places, that it's not the same as water skiing. And when you do this, you should take the bunny slope and not go to the expert slope. And so that was a little different, but I also enjoyed going on the tours of the religious temples. But I figured the religion over there, it was Christian and a lot of Baptist, but I was like, it must have been Southern Baptist that came here, because after you go to the temple, then you go drink. So I was like, this is great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting time, and I left right before everything got really bad and or worse. There were things that I wish I had seen more, but I really liked Korea. I loved learning the culture. Like I said, I did martial arts. I did Taekwondo. So that was the one thing that I think I started realizing the culture was great. I enjoyed being involved in that. I started realizing that there was more to the military, because we had done Desert Shield, Desert Storm, but it was, a 100-hour war. So it was kind of like almost, I don't want to call it a fantasy because it wasn't, but it was more like a television show.
Right.
And then I didn't, because I wasn't there, I didn't know a lot of what was going on. So then I came back. After 94, I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base with 2nd Communications in the audio visual. And I still used my clearance a lot because we had computers then.
By that time.
By that time, we had computers. Although graphic artists used Corel Draw instead of. Well,
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Right, and now
not to date both of us, but I just haven't heard that in a long time.
I'll date us. Corel Draw 5.
I knew
Before
exactly
that, I
what
had
you're.
learned. Before that, I'd learned Harvard graphics, and before that,
There we go.
so yeah, I don't mind dating myself on this
All
because
right.
it was an interesting time. It really
Definitely.
was.
Yep.
So because of my clearance and everything, I also ran a video teleconferencing center up there with with 8th Air Force, and the Russians would come in to inspect our nuclear bombs for the B-52s, and they would use the video teleconferencing center as their hub, their base. So it we would lose it as the best way they explained it to me was once they landed, it was no longer U.S. property.
Gotcha.
It was kind of like their little embassy. So I had to be there. We had to wrap up all the camera equipment. There had to be somebody there 24/7. So there was a lot of people. They would work with me. I had to be in my blues all the time, which I hated. But I had picked up, because of this, I had started going to LSUS and learning Russian. And I loved it. I learned how to write it. I was learning all of it, and it was fantastic. So the START Treaty program was like, oh, wow. So you're picking up Russian on the side.
Right.
Hey, how are you with eavesdropping? I was like, well, I'm an airman. Tee.
Yeah.
They won't, So I enjoyed it. It was great.
How was your interaction? How was your interactions with the Russians? Do you anybody stick out? Anything memorable about that?
Yes. I got to sit in on one of the briefings that all of them did together. Just in the back, they were like, why don't you just sit here and enjoy it? It happened to be a really hot summer. And so they had their translator. And I wasn't good at really understanding what was being said, but I had the gist of it, and I would know when things were funny and that was the same way with Korean. I would just realize that, hey, don't talk about me, or what did you say? And so it was just this whole instinct. So we're sitting there and we're going through it, and it was really hot, and one of the Russians said something, blah, 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 blah. And before the translator came up, I started laughing. And then the translator and everybody looks at me, and they were like, well, he just said, now we know why y'all are called rednecks, because of the heat. And I was like, and I'm done. So they were like, yeah, you can't sit in on stuff anymore. I was like, I didn't really understand what he was saying. I just knew it was funny. And they were like, sure.
Sure.
But that was like one of the best parts is this working with that. And I enjoyed it. But I also, at the same time, this is when our Air Force core values were changing. I had also tried out and made the Air Force Taekwondo team. 97 and 98, which I was like, wait, I get paid to go for permissive TDY to go for 30 days minimum to kick people?
Yeah.
Where has this been all my life? I didn't know about the military sports programs that much, so I did that under SISM. And in 98, when I decided I wanted to change jobs and become a Russian interpreter or translator, and they said to do that you have to make staff sergeant. But if you make staff sergeant, you're going to be locked into Graphic Illustrator and go back on another remote. And I said, I'm not doing that. I didn't like the core values. Things were changing. Our rating was changing. It was really hard. So I was not happy with the way everything was going. So I did the easiest way to get out under the stop release program, or I forgot how they called it back then. I did my test, my sergeant's test, or staff sergeant's test. I answered the first 2 bubbles and the last 2 bubbles.
There we go. You made it easy.
Right, so I did the high year tenure, and I was just about to get out, and I did the Taekwondo team for the last year, and they said, hey, guess what? You just made all Armed Forces Taekwondo team to go fight under, and I was like, yay, and they said, it's in November, and you get out in October. What are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. So I turned around, got out, and 3 days later walked into the Army Reserve recruiter's office. And I wanted to do either translating or graphic illustrator, and I was told I'd have to go to school for the two. So I couldn't do that, and I became an 88 November, which was transportation coordinator.
Okay.
Went off and went to Fort Hood to train to fight, and had a great time with it. I mean, when you do this and you're fighting is basically kind of like the military Olympics. You're fighting people from the other world military program that were doing this, and I enjoyed it. I mean, the people. One of my teammates, Liz Evans, was from the Navy. She was the Navy Taekwondo team. Everybody said the way the Navy looked at it was, well, if you can beat Liz Evans, then you can make the Navy Taekwondo team. And she was fantastic and lived up in Colorado and trained at the Olympic Center. And I just remember her because I was so scared of her, and I knew I couldn't be in her weight division because sometimes when we would do the All Armed Forces fights, you'd have to fight her, and I was like, no, I'd rather fight a male Marine than her. No. So I made sure to stay out of her weight division. But yeah, I came back from that. Started to work down in Baton Rouge. With the reserve unit, and we were a detachment. We had a small detachment in the reserve unit, and our first summer camp was to. Now remember, I know nothing about my job at this point. I was OJT'd into this. I didn't even understand what the ribbons were in the Army. I was still saying yes sir, yes ma'am to everybody, and I played pocket pool a lot because the Air Force let you have your hands in your pocket. So my whole idea was like, oh, this is great. So we went to our first summer camp, which was Yermo in California, right around the Mojave Desert. So we pull up, and I'm looking around at this desert, and I looked at my sergeant, who was my commander, and I said, where's the dorm? She looked at me and she's like, oh, this is going to be a long one. And I said, so where's our bathrooms? And she pointed to the porta potties. There was like 4 or 5 for about 1,000, 2,000 people. And I was like, no.
And what time of year is this?
Summer.
Oh.
I was like, this. And then they said, well, you 3 women are going to go have to put up your own tent. And I was like, put up a what? Well, yeah, you got to put up your own tent. Thank goodness we had 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys in our unit. So they put up our tent, but they put it up where they had dug a hole or a divot in to pull the sandbags from. So apparently all of us were newbies at this. They were like, oh, look. And so they put it there. So when it rained, we had a swamp, basically. But also our tent had holes in it. So we found that out on the 3rd day of being there, that it was, hey. This was a whole...
That place in summer, man, whew, I'm in LA, but I've driven through that area many times.
Right? It's hot during the day and freezing at night.
Yep.
And my real job as a civilian was a casino dealer. So I was working overnight doing that. So my commander was like, well, I'll just keep you overnight. You'll be great. Plus, you're from the Air Force, so we need to hide you because you're an embarrassment. I was like, okay. And at the time I had blonde hair because I could get better tips as a dealer and be like, I got blackjack. Yeah. So my nickname by the commander, the camp commander, was Private Benjamin. So I was okay with it. I was like, okay, you want to call me Private Benjamin? Okay, we'll go with that. But it was a different situation. I remember like 4 days into it, I had decided I could use the porta potty for more than the first job. And so I did. 2-3 in the morning, and I'm poking my commander on the shoulder, and she says, what, Charett? And I went to the bathroom in the porta potty. She's like, you woke me up for that. And I was like,
yep.
Isn't that great? And she's like, no. And I said, but there was no, I had toilet paper too. And she's like, "Go, no, no, no." And so I made it through the AT. I'm surprised I even made it through. But I decided that, you know what? This Army life, if I'm going to be stuck doing this, I need a better job that puts me in a hotel.
Yep.
And so I came back and did one of the, to do my MOS, I had to take one of the reserve training schools. And I met a sergeant there, and he was a wait, we didn't have tech sergeants in the Army. Staff sergeant, then sergeant first class.
Okay.
There we go. See, I still don't remember. He says, you know, if you become a 88 November instructor, transportation instructor, you don't stay in tents. And at that time, I was working at FEMA after Hurricane Katrina. So this was 2005 to 2010, I worked for FEMA. But I had just started learning. I'd been asked because of everything in my martial arts I was asked by an acting agent to become, hey, you want to be in Mortal Kombat 4 as a martial artist, as an actress, because they're gonna film it in New Orleans. Well, it never happened. But I started acting, and so I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I love the acting, the coaching. So when I went to go for talking to the people for becoming an 88 November instructor with my unit, I BS'd my way into it. Look, I've been a martial artist all this time. I teach martial arts. I've got great leadership skills. I know what I'm doing. This is great. You need a female in this to work with the females. So I went from specialist to corporal so that I could teach. Mm-hmm. Then was promoted conditionally to sergeant, as long as I would go to WLDC, which never happened, because I got out of that too, because I was a private Benjamin, right? So, I think I was the only instructor in the Army to have taught a course and continued teaching courses that never did that job in real life at all. I mean, I didn't even know how to drive a Humvee. So I taught it, and so we would have soldiers say, well, how do you do this? I don't understand how this works. Again, I didn't know any of it, and I would just be like, you know what? I could explain it to you, but you're going to get confused because you can't see it and you're not getting hands-on experience. So wait till you get to your unit and you guys actually do it. And I had my sergeant first class and my master sergeant in back going, this is not... Okay, you're an actress, so we'll go with that. You're good. So I stayed in. I got out in 2009. As I retired, I had some medical issues. I had a rod put in my back in 2008. I didn't realize at the time I had PTSD too because of issues that happened in the military, including MST, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. So I wasn't aware that I was having issues along with anxiety attack, panic attacks. And I just knew that I enjoyed acting. Mm-hmm. So then that's what led to it, because I got paid $800 to be in Private Valentine with Jessica Simpson. And my whole scene in there as Butchie, it's the Butchie sergeant, was you see the back when she's going through not MEPS, she's at basic and they're giving her all her clothes. And she gets to the underwear section and she's like, I don't wear underwear. And just the back of me, you see me throw underwear over her face. I got paid $800 to throw underwear in Jessica Simpson's face.
That's a hell of a first job.
Right? I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. And they had talked about, oh, we're going to shave your head. And I said, you can't do that. That's against Army regulations. I wasn't shaving my hair for $100 bump of all things.
Right.
I was like, no, this isn't happening. Which was good because the whole scene of 10 seconds is just my backside. Mm-hmm. And so that's the side my friends recognized. they had a screenshot and they sent it to me because I didn't tell anybody I was in this. I was a little embarrassed because, no FaceTime, and I get this picture on Facebook. We recognize this butt. Granted, these were my martial arts students and friends, but they recognized me and my BDUs.
Hey, you're known for something. You're known for something. Yes.
That's a start.
That's a start. Most of us
start.
wouldn't be known for anything.
Look, all I'm glad is it was clothed, right?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, from there, my acting, I retired out of the Army Reserves. 20 years, I loved it. The only problems I had is when I got out of the Air Force, the TAP program was maybe 2 hours long, and it was, here's your resume, good luck, have a great day, love you. The GI Bill wasn't explained to me. I only had 10 years from getting out of active duty to use my Montgomery GI Bill. I didn't know about the VA home loan. I didn't know, even though my mom and dad were veterans, I didn't know about the VA hospital or the health care. Knew nothing because it wasn't explained to us. And even in the Army Reserves, a lot of this wasn't explained to me, but I had started figuring out a little bit. And I started realizing I was having problems. And that's when I was going to be deployed to Fallujah in 2004. And I went to the VA to get my stuff, and my mental health doctor just kind of walked out and went, he kind of giggled because he was a civilian. He says, "You're not going." And I looked at him and I was like, well, I'm glad I'm not going. But why? And he says, well, you're bipolar. And I didn't know it. And I thought that was the end of my career. Because at that time we didn't know everything. He's like, yeah, you're more dangerous to your own unit. And I was like, well, I know that. I mean, I'm a female. Of course I'm more dangerous to my own unit. But hey, if there's a medical term for it, okay. So it was one of those love-hates that I wish I had deployed, but I don't. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Especially in the Army.
Yeah.
Intense.
In Iraq, in the desert again.
Right. Yeah, of all things. And then them saying, oh, you'll be in a skiff most of the time. And I just remember the bombing that happened to our skiffs during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And I was like, okay, you're not making this any
Yeah, you're not
easier.
selling it. You're not selling it.
Yeah, and I think it was, I was supposed to go with First Cav. And I was like, no. We're talking a whole new Private Benjamin here.
Right.
So yeah, things, because of medical, I'm glad because I was having medical issues. I would have been a more of a hazard for my unit, for my battle buddy. At the time I couldn't even, in 2008 when I got my rod in my back, I couldn't even wear a rucksack anymore. Couldn't put that on. So I was like, I can't even drag my battle buddy out if there's an issue. I'm more of a danger. This is not good. My unit started at 18 years trying to get rid of me, which is something I found out a lot of females in the reserves. At 18 years, they start trying to medically discharge them. Especially in the Army, that was the big one. I don't know how much that's changed, but I know a lot of things like sexual harassment has not changed, sexual assault. Things like that have not changed, and it gets worse because if you report it, you're the bad person, not the victim. And this happened to men too. So this was a whole situation I was starting to see. So I got out, I retired. I was acting. I finished off with FEMA in 2010. That was our job, was to work ourselves out of a job. I learned a lot from FEMA on how to deal with hurricanes, how to deal with disaster preparedness, which has come in handy. Still living in Louisiana on filing for things and helping people. But the acting was the big thing. I started realizing, hey, these acting techniques, when I got with instructors that I really trusted, the people that I got to know in the acting classes, there was a few, one of them became my best friend. I started trusting them. We started using the techniques, and I was able to work through some of my issues. Not to where it healed me, they became coping mechanisms. I was able to do the casket monologue where you're able to say something you visualize somebody there and you're telling them how sorry you were, this kind of stuff. So I was able to start doing things like that, or the dump where I just looked at the wall and just screamed everything out, visualizing a certain person. And so that, I started seeing how therapeutic it was. Not to mention you got paid good money. But here in Louisiana, even though we were ahead of Los Angeles and New York at the time in 2013, 2014, they would still bring in people from LA to be the actors. So you would get the minor roles or the supporting roles, nothing really big. And it just became, it was harder. But in 2013, Scream, the television series from MTV, was shooting in Baton Rouge. And one of my best friends, who was from Australia, that I'd gone to LA and I met her, was living over here with me because the work was better. So she became a locations key manager, which is where you go out and you scout for the locations. You're in charge of the locations, all the kind of good stuff, but you're also the low man on the totem pole. I was like, oh, so like the Army. Okay, yeah.
Like the Army.
Yeah, this is
right.
maybe, well, no, more like the Coast Guard.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, but no, even, you know how we are. We can play with the military. Now it's the Space Force that we all have issues with, right?
Exactly. Hey, I got some neighbors in the Space Force out here. So.
Really? Do they
Yes.
wear the tin hats?
I haven't seen the tin hats. I haven't seen that yet. No.
Yeah, I have yet to meet anybody in the Space Force. I think more because they won't admit it. I don't know. We're in Baton Rouge, so hey, anything goes, especially in New Orleans. But
That's right.
So, I went and I was always on set. I was 90% disabled, and I wouldn't go for my 100% individual with the individual unemployability because I was like, well, I'll be an actor. I'll get paid every once in a while. I can't do this. You can't work and do this. So I had my Social Security. I was 90% disabled. And they asked me, hey, since you're out here all night and running errands, why don't you come work locations? So I called Social Security office and asked about it. And they said, yes, you can work in a 5-year period. You can work 8 months and make as much money as you want. But at your 8th month, I believe it was the 7th or 8th month, if you're making over $800 on those 8 months, anytime in the 5-year period, you're going to lose your Social Security benefits. And I was like, okay, so in a 5-year period, I can make as much money as I want, $100 million. Just don't hit that 8-month mark.
Right.
Got it. So I did go work on the set. It was 12. Film industry is 12-hour days. Locations has to be there an hour before, minimum hour after. 14-hour days.
Yep.
And you have to clean up the area. So there were things you're not considered on a lot of, you're cleaning the bathrooms, you're doing all, but you're also getting to see the locations, take pictures, you're there working with the homeowners, with the business people. So you have this whole new rapport. And the military helped me because I'm able to start foreseeing, oh, wow, once I knew how to read the script and what they were doing for the day and the call sheet, I was like, oh, okay, I see what I'm doing. I see what's going on. I'm able to foresee things. I'm able to see a danger. I'm looking at this from a different angle. The 12-hour days didn't bother me. The 4, it was just one of those things. You knew how, basically to go through things. The issues I had was physically with the rod in my back. I couldn't carry the pop-up tents or move a lot of the heavy stuff like our portable generators. But that was, to me, it was okay because I had people working with me. And I could be the female at that point. I wasn't the soldier anymore. I was like, hey, I'm having problems with this. Can you help me? But that was, again, the hard thing, asking for help.
Asking for help, yeah.
Asking for help was one of the harder things that I had and have still had from this. So I turned around and stayed with locations, enjoyed it, became a location scout. Because of being a southern girl and being in the military, I would introduce myself, and so people felt comfortable, and I would actually scout their homes, and be there for 2.5 hours later. And my best friend, who was my key manager, called me like, "Are you safe?" Yeah. They are actually making me lunch.
They're
Why?
making you a coffee cake and lunch and tea.
Right,
and all
and
that
she's
stuff.
like, "You have to leave." I was like, "Well, there's a problem with that. They said I can't leave until I finish my food. Southern hospitality."
Southern Hospital. That's right.
And she's like, "This is ridiculous."
This also isn't Los Angeles, so.
Right. That was the other big thing. But I enjoyed it. And so I ended up doing scouting locations for some independent films, working locations, still auditioning, still acting, and just moving forward with things, because the film industry is more of a, I don't like to say seasonal job, but it is, because it's whatever you want to pick up to work on.
That's right.
And during this time, I met a guy at the VA that was like, "Well, you can get individual unemployability. You're at 90%. And I said, "Well, I'm in the film industry. I work a little bit." "Oh, no. That's okay, because it's not a full-time job and it's not gainful employment." And I was like, "It is gainful. I can make 10 grand in a month. Of course it's gainful." No, it's not promotable and gainful as far as 9 to 5 or a schedule. And he mentioned that we have people that are on individual unemployability that are also pro bass fishermen that can go to a tournament and make 60 grand and still be on individual unemployability. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, right.
So I did. I applied, got my 100%. With the individual unemployability, because at the time they were not allowing for secondary chronic pain, all of that. So I started doing that, or maybe I missed out on that part because I couldn't even remember the PACT Act or any of that stuff back. It was just like, okay, whatever. I had gone to school during FEMA to use my GI Bill, and the VA said, "Well, you can't be a director because there's no directing jobs here in Louisiana." So that again was another problem I had, was that I was told what I could do with my GI Bill money and what I couldn't do. So I never got a degree, but I could have gone to film school, don't need the degree, because to me you need the experience, and that's what I see a lot. So yeah, fast forwarding back, that I started working locations. I enjoyed it. My friends, we would make films together. They would script write. I was getting the coping mechanisms. I was starting to learn about more the industry jobs. And in 2020, in the middle of COVID, because I always do things backwards, I decided, after trying to do some interviews with veterans, I was working on my first one. I had been asked by a veteran to do one on homeless veterans in Louisiana. And I was like, okay. So I started realizing through the red tape, we have 400 homeless veterans on any given day in Louisiana. Of that is about 100 females. There might be one homeless female shelter for veterans now in the United States, dedicated just to female veterans. Warner Robins has opened up a transitional homing for female veterans. But I think they have to, I'm not quite sure how everything works. And the red tape is horrendous for any veteran. If you bounce sofa to sofa according to HUD and the VA, a lot of times you're not considered homeless because you have shelter. Some places, depending on what they say, alters what is considered homeless. So between that and noticing that our veterans, a lot of them don't trust the VA, didn't want to trust it, I started seeing there were issues. And then when I was interviewing them, they were like, we don't want to talk to non-veterans. We don't want crew that is non-veterans. And I just opened in 2020, I opened my production company called Bad Habits Productions right in the middle of COVID.
Hey, got to do it sometime. I started this podcast in the middle of COVID too. Got to do something, right?
Right. So at this time I realized, oh wow, this is my job. I love this. This is what I want to do, but I didn't want to go back to work. I'm retired. Yeah. Woohoo.
Right.
That doesn't last. Never say never kind of deal. So I did. I opened it and I started working on it. I realized, hey, you need money just to do a homeless veteran documentary here in Louisiana, just covering Baton Rouge and New Orleans was going to be $64,000 over an 8-month period. I was like, oh my God, this isn't how this works. I didn't know how to do funding. I didn't know any of that. And so I was talked by Urban League of Louisiana, which was mentoring me. The mentor said, hey, you should open a 501c3 that trains veterans. We've lost so many people to Atlanta. You need to do this. And I said, yeah, but I don't want to do it. You can't make money at a 501c3. And she laughed. She says, have you heard about the CEO of Red Cross? And I was like, what? And she says, go look up some of these people and what they make. And I was like, I don't want to make that money. I'm good. This is all about veterans. And so, yeah, I started working and making that happen. Now, 2.5 years, almost 3 years later, for the organization, it is now coming to fruition. Bad Habits Production Company, the mission of that is not only to make any and all films that I can, especially if they're equal opportunity offenders, is to hire 60% veterans to be on my film as cast and crew.
Cool.
I can do that because I'm the producer, right? Now I just need the money for the films. So I bounced back to the organization, and I am now doing my first fundraiser to get money so that we can train the veterans. And what happens is the veterans take for free. They sign a contract that says, we'll go through the course. It's on the weekends. It's not a film school, so it's not accredited. I don't have to worry about how the VA or anybody else looks at it. You don't have to have degrees, anything like that to teach. I use the local film industry professionals. They get paid from the organization. The veteran takes for free. They just have to finish the course, or they have to pay back. So the instructor is paid. And it's only according to your AIT or whatever. Just the same thing. This was your job. This is what you were going to do in the military. And the same thing here in the taking the course. You want to be a locations person? Great. We're going to bring you in on weekends. You're going to do this for a couple hours on Saturday, Sunday, and then the following weekend, however, so that we don't interfere with their job, their medical, anything. And so if you want to be a script writer, you're going to do this. And so I've talked to a lot. There's a great organization called Veterans in Media and Entertainment. And it's over 5,000 strong of veterans that do this in different things. And I've talked to other people on Facebook. There's a thing called Crew Stories, and I just did a big post in there about, hey, how many veterans in here have realized that the structure of the film industry is quite similar to the military? And a ton of them popped up, and they said, this has saved my life. This has been I didn't know what to do with my life after the military, and this has been the most perfect thing. And I finally opened up during this and started telling my story and on how the film industry saved my life. As an actor, I didn't realize my first time that I had suicidal tendencies or whatever.
Ideations, yeah. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it too. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it too.
I think it's ideations. I'm not even sure. Yeah. So I turned around because I went to the VA one time to mental health, and I said, I feel like I've been treading water. I'm tired. I don't want to tread water anymore. And I was crying, and they sat there. The receptionist or somebody just sat there saying, well, what's the issue? I didn't realize I was suicidal. The VA had this rule about you have to say the word that you're suicidal before they'll help you, at least at that time. And this was 2007 or 8 when that happened. So once a therapist saw that and said she's suicidal, I was like, wait, what? On top of the bipolar being like, oh my God, this is, I'm done with life. This is not how this is supposed to work. I started realizing the coping mechanisms I was using. And I went to the VA hospital for a weekend because I had an acting gig and wanted to come back and work with Burt Reynolds.
Nice.
So I had checked myself in, so I was able to check myself out, which was a mistake. And 2 years later, I checked myself back in for a month because I also realized that when you're on mental health medication, they cold turkey you off of one and put you on another. So there's a 30-day gap that your whole body is freaking out along with your mental health issues. And I didn't like that. So I forced myself to stay in the VA hospital. They kept trying to kick me out. 1 week later, they were like, "You're good. You can go home." No, I'm not. I had to say, "No, you're going to keep me." And I saw that as a flaw with the VA. I started realizing there was a lot more flaws with the VA. And that's how all these documentaries I wanted to do, veterans and the obstacles they face. Okay. So I've been talking to people, and that's where the documentaries were going to come in, and I know that I needed funding, and I couldn't do it. So the organization was starting to train. I wanted to train them. I started realizing that writing scripts is therapeutic for some. Doing music is therapeutic for others. You can still, no matter what job you had in the military, it can cross over into the film industry. Even snipers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can be anything.
It's interesting to. Sorry to interrupt. No, it's interesting because obviously I live in LA. I'm from California, so you see that everywhere, right? And you do see a lot of. I think I don't know if it's because of social media or subject matter or whatever, but you do see a lot of people with every conceivable MOS, not just the Chris Kyle sniper, who the elite, but you just see. I got a bunch of friends that are in that industry, and some of them were techs in the Army. Some of them were, HVAC specialists, and now they've translated that over into the film industry.
Right.
That being said, I haven't heard a lot of people say that the film industry saved me. I've heard a lot of people say it ruined me, but especially out here.
It actually, there's a lot. It did because my second time when I felt suicidal, my agents who are a military family, they're very supportive. I had broken down and told them that I was bipolar. And so my agents, I'm going to plug them for a minute. Landrum Arts LA, which is here, but they've gone national, and they're just amazing. My agent Dawn Landrum said, my mom was bipolar, and this is not something to be ashamed of. And you need to go research all the actors that are bipolar. I was like, wait,
especially
what?
In that industry. That's
right. And so I started looking them up. I was surprised you had Catherine Zeta-Jones, Jodie Foster, all of these amazing actors and actresses that were bipolar. And I was like, wow, okay. And she said, my agent Dawn said, this is the great part, is because you're able to channel into your issues. So you can change who you are a lot easier with your acting skills. Okay, that's great. And then I started seeing it on the backside. Oh wow, you have other ways to channel, construction, script writing. You're able to use that to write through issues without really realizing it. So I saw a lot of the coping mechanisms, and just because it was the film industry, there was camaraderie, and you see all of this. I'm like, this is great. Yes, this will work with my organization. So the other thing that I picked up with doing this is not only do I pay the local film industry professionals, but now they have a pool of veterans that they can call to come work for them. Okay,
and that's what I want to get to because for any vets listening to this, thinking they might want to dip their toes in that industry, I'm sure they can reach out and contact you. But tell me what's going forward for your organization real quick. What's coming up?
So my organization is doing on September 30th. We're doing our first fundraiser, and it is called Casino Night.
Great from the office.
Days, right?
Great from the office.
yes, of course. So what I've done is it's a fundraiser. The lieutenant governor here is a big veteran and film industry pusher. So the Louisiana Seafood Board has donated 200 pounds of shrimp to me. And they do this for a lot of people, for a lot of veteran organizations and a lot. So that, and that I want to put this on, I'm putting it on at the American Legion here. We're doing an online auction so that this is national too. So the online auction, I have like the Tabasco company. Tabasco has donated gift baskets. We have the Queen Natchez, I believe, the riverboat that is doing that gave us a riverboat tour with dinner down in New Orleans. I have so many, not only veteran organizations, but because Louisiana is so big, community coffee. I've got these boxes like up to my head of community coffee. I have yet to open it. God, I hope it's not all in one packet, because somebody's drinking a lot of coffee that night.
That's right. That's right.
So I have these things that I can auction off. I have an actress, Meredith Thomas, who works with Vivica Fox. She's on Lifetime and Hallmark all the time. She's coming in. She loves veterans. She's with the Elks Lodge over at Van Nuys.
Okay.
And so she's coming in, and I met her in 2007. She was one of my instructors out at a studio there that I went to for an intensive course. I forgot the name of it. So intensive course. So she's coming out to talk. Well, also during this time, I met another guy through some friends that had a film that he wanted to get. He wrote it, wanted it produced, because I know people here. He's from Louisiana. He's from Baton Rouge. His name is Tariq Zodi. He's Egyptian, and so he wrote kind of it's a little maybe biographical. I'm not even sure. He took a lot from his own, New Orleans, Louisiana Egyptian. So we can just tell where that goes with being Muslim down here. Kind of doesn't fit in very well. It's hard. Let me just say that. So I knew a director. She's great, Rachel Jacob, and she's helping me with my doing my fundraiser. Her and Tarek are definitely helping. So that's where they fit into this.
Okay.
So we're doing the fundraiser. We have the online auction. We have in-house raffles. We have these great dinner that the Louisiana Culinary Institute, 2 of their students are going to help cook, along with some casino employees that I know. Won't say if I know them from working with them or gambling under them and them taking. You're right. So we have that. Then I found out about a company that does the casino tables and stuff. So we have 3 blackjack tables. We have a craps table, all this. So all of this stuff is intertwining with it, where they can come in, they buy little things here and there. They do the dinner, which is $80 a ticket, but you have all of this stuff that goes along with it, plus the online auction. The online auction not only benefits my organization, 5% goes to the Louisiana Honor Flight, which flies our veterans, our World War II, Korean, and Vietnam veterans, and our terminally ill veterans to Washington for the day for free.
Yep.
I got to fly with them last year as their videographer. I loved it. I want to do it more and more. The only people that have to pay are the Guardians.
Yeah, that's an awesome organization. I'm familiar with that as well.
And I did not know about them. And I realized, talking to them, they don't get to raise the funds they need because they're not known. I said, okay, so 5% of the online auction is going to them. Another 5% is going to the Louisiana Women Veterans Funeral Travel Fund, because I'm with them. I've been a part of their organization for a while. I love the women veterans. I'm learning more and more about the older veterans and what they've gone through. And so the Louisiana Women Veterans Funeral Fund, they travel anywhere in Louisiana to a female veteran's funeral on their own, and they do some things up there to comfort the family, and they do a poem, and sometimes they present the flag, because we don't have a lot of people that do that. So they do this on their own. They pay their gas, their lodging. 5% goes to that now to them too.
Great.
So 90% comes to me for the equipment, because I can't ask, if you're coming in and you're going to learn how to run a camera, are you going to buy the camera if you don't know if this is something you want to do? And it's $1,000. So I'm going to have the equipment. If you want to learn how to edit, you're going to have the equipment to work on to get your feet wet, and then you're going to work on my production for 1 or 2 to get the full experience you need to be able to go to work, because you can't be thrown just straight into the film industry.
Nope.
It's trial by fire. You have to have people that understand. That's right. And that's the other thing, because of the appointments or whatever the VA has, I understand that a little bit more, and I'm willing to work with them.
Awesome. Okay, and I'll link all this, obviously, and we'll release this show just before your event. Finally, to wrap up, what you look back on your career, what are you most proud of? What looks back and you say, hey, I'm really happy I did that. I'm assuming you're, obviously happy that you decided to go the path you did. But we all have regrets. We all have things we're proud of. What are you most proud of?
That I made the 20 years because that was the one thing that I 100% completed. It showed me my resilience. It also, while it showed me my weaknesses, all of it has benefited me to where I am now, especially that I see ways that I can make changes. The military doesn't ask you, well, how would you do this better? So for me, it's given me, in the film industry, it gave me where I can foresee and look and say, okay, if this is going to go this way, then I need to look for the cord sticking out this way, the extension cord. Do I need to do this? Is there a water pipe, or is there something over here that I need to be aware of? And it's also allowed me with my acting to be able, I'm not afraid to walk up to a producer and be like, yo, this needs to change, or a director. I more verbalized because, let's just say, okay, I didn't look at my generals as generals. I was like, well, they put their pants on the same way I do. And then everyone's like, no, that's not how it works. Yes, it is. But so now I have no problem walking up to somebody or anybody and saying anything. I'm very confident in that fact. Especially, you can't talk to the actors. You can't, I worked with Sigourney Weaver on my last film. I did locations for her. I was very aware of her position and what she did, but I also knew that I couldn't really talk to her because she was in character. So I understood that, but it didn't stop me from talking to Joel Eggleston, who was on set with us, and he's the new Uncle Owen on the Star Wars. I can't remember what one it is, but they're like, he's Uncle Owen, and I'm like, I'm a big Star Wars freak. Yeah. But he wouldn't talk to me of all the people. And I wear that's my thing, is I wear Star Wars shirts on set every day. So all of my people I know from other crews, they're like, hey, we know you because you're wearing Baby Yoda. Right, so it was this whole thing of, I'm not afraid to speak up to people. I'm also not afraid to scream safety, even though it may not be my job. I'm 100% safety comes first. I'm 100% into, if the owner of a location says no smoking on set and I don't want to see cigarette butts on my property, I will go around as locations. I have to pick them up, but I have no problem telling production I will shut it down if they do not. That may not be my job, but at the same time, I'm the one who has to live with these people in my area. That's right. I'm the one who sees them in Walmart. That's right. Not our LA producers, directors, or anything else like that. That's right. And it's my integrity and my reputation, not theirs. Right. That's online. That's right. That's right. And so that military, is also
military helped you with all of that. Yep.
All of that. And while the military injured me, this is where it's come in. And so I see the therapeutic mechanisms. This is not in any way take the place of any medications or therapy you need to do, but these are coping mechanisms to help you in between. And I see it all. I encourage every veteran, even if they're just background actors, to try it because it's interesting. Or if you're a carpenter, I mean, I even had people say, well, I was recon. Great, you're great at locations. There you go. There you go. Well, I was an EOD. Oh, great. So now you can do explosives. Okay, we got this. Or even military consultants. Well, I'm an amputee. Okay, you can be an editor, a writer. Nothing's stopping. You can be a director. That's right. Nothing's going to stop you. If you want to do it, you can do it. You can be a truck driver in this industry. Hair and makeup. I don't know how somebody in the military. Okay, maybe it was the camouflage stuff. Accounting, all of that. You have every job, I think, would coordinate over. Our pilots can do drones. Yep. The only one I think would be the missile silos, maybe. But I'm sure we could put them in locations to pick up trash.
Do something else.
Right. Space Force, we can definitely use.
Right.
It might be a little rough on them. They're probably not prepared for this. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. You're inside, you're outside. You work 12-hour days. That's bad on the industry. I feel sorry for them. But the military is able to handle it.
That's right.
We're trying to get it down to 10-hour days. That is what we need. Some of it's union, some of it's not. It's great experience. You work just maybe 3 months, 4 months, unless you're on a TV set. But it's still great. You're able to see things. You're able to move over. It's not like we're stuck in that career field. We can learn and go to different careers. And because you don't have to go to school for it, it's even better. It's OJT. You pick up and you do things. You work on short films. The GI Film Festival is a great program for us. Vet Talks, the Vet TV, all of that works for us. Podcast.
Yep.
That's how come I reached out to you. I was like, what am I doing? I need to talk about it. My organization's doing the fundraiser on September 30th, 6 to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. But the online auction opens up the 25th of September.
Okay.
Nationally for everybody to do it. It ends at midnight on the 30th. Meredith Thomas is donating some time, one of her business consultations for stuff, for acting. I think I don't know who all else we have involved, but
I'll link all of it up so people can reach out.
And I don't have the link for that
stuff
yet. We're still putting it together, but we have all kinds of stuff that's been donated. DEFCON 1 donated stuff. Not just locally. I've had, these donations are coming in from around the world, or not around the world, but here. So anybody that wants to still donate, and they don't have to just during that time. My organization website has a donation button. If there's somebody that wants to sponsor, $100 a month, that's $25 a month they sponsor, they're going to get a 501c3 letter, tax deductible, because this is an ongoing project. The organization, it needs money to run. It needs equipment. If somebody knows how to get a hold of film equipment and wants to have it donated, please let me know.
Cool.
So this is a constant
ongoing
thing
concern
that's going to happen. Yes, because I see it. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Well, Deanna, thank you so much I'm really glad you reached out. It's cool. I just, like I said, I'm in LA and so I see that, but it's cool to see it going around the country and other parts of getting vets that, are not able to make it out to this madness out here in LA, that they're able to do it in their own locality. So,
and that's the good thing is that so many states have tax incentives now.
That's right.
That it's amazing. And the easiest way for any veteran that's interested, that has never done anything, is to go onto Facebook, or that's mainly where it is now, and look up film groups that are in your state. Get you started. If they don't have it, or they're concerned, or don't know what to do, reach out to me on badhabits.org, and just I will find things. And like I said, this is healthy competition for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving information. My best friend is my number one competitor as actors.
Right.
We film each other for auditions. We go against each other.
Right.
And that's the whole point. There's enough candy in the candy store.
For sure. That's the right way of thinking about it. Someone who's been in it for a while. So
yes, and so if they go to badhabits.org, make sure, you guys, it's Bad Habits, BADHABITZ.org. And everyone knows in the military you have bad habits when you get out.
That's right.
So that's a tip of the hat.
All right, Deanna, all the best. Really nice talking to you, and thanks for, and keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, all the best.